Joe Biden and his administration says, surprise, surprise, they think that SCOTUS got it wrong after striking down student loan forgiveness. Of course he does. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you want to sit here and make the argument that student loan forgiveness is a good program, I'll disagree with you for some reasons I've laid out last night, in which I'll summarize again in a moment here. But ultimately, the idea that it is an infringement of people's rights, that the Supreme Court is failing to stick to constitutional ideals by not allowing Joe Biden to redistribute wealth from people who didn't receive higher education or who paid off their loans to people who did receive higher education and or didn't pay off their loans, or I should say, and didn't pay off their loans, not and or, is totally insane. So I rattled off some statistics last night. People who graduate with a PhD earn something like $99,000 a year as their median income, and their unemployment rate is about 1.1%. People with masters will earn a median income of about $78,000. Their unemployment rate is slightly higher, but nothing too terrible. Then when you go down to people who only have a high school education, their median income is about $38,000 a year, and they have a 4-point-something% unemployment rate. So the idea that people who haven't received higher education, who are making significantly less money and have a higher unemployment rate, should have their wealth redistributed in order to pay for people who did receive a higher education and who are now in the workforce with a higher earning potential, despite taking anywhere between 4 and 8 years out of the workforce in order to attain that degree, and in many cases paid for some of their living expenses rather than just their education with those loans. I think it's just totally insane. It's totally unfair, aside from being unconstitutional. I gotta argue that should be the state of affairs.
I got to ask, because I talked to my mother about this a couple days ago, and I was like, I'm not comfortable. She's like, oh yeah, they're starting to stop him from, but Ian, you need, and I'm like, I'm not comfortable getting other people to tax money to pay off my debt. And she's like, no, it's only the billionaires' taxes that are getting used. Not true. So this is the media. I mean, she watches MSNBC.
Yeah.
I guess they're just kind of subtly not telling you the guys that make $16 an hour at McDonald's are going to have to pay your taxes for me to get my student loans paid. I mean, fortunately I'm not in that bracket now. It's well, so what happened is I got an email from the department. It's not Biden. He's not even doing it with his mouth. He's doing it with the Department of Education. I got an email from them that said, we think the Supreme Court got it wrong. This is like 4 days ago or something. So we're going to do it anyway, but we're going to do it with people that are making up to $65,000 a year or something like that. And if you don't want it, opt out, but otherwise we're just going to do it.
Well, I think part of this for Biden is it's a make or break issue for him, because he campaigned so hard on, I will get your student loans forgiven, right? And so now we're getting desperate. We're getting closer to election season, and he needs to make progress on this issue. Otherwise, a lot of his young voter base is going to say, but you said you'd pay off my debt and you didn't. I mean, I have never understood how Joe Biden is a viable candidate for Democrats anyways, but it's important to note how big of an issue this was. This was a deciding factor for young voters. Understandably so, because I don't disagree with Seamus. On the other hand, the reality is, if you have tons of student loan debt because you were told, hey, go take out a loan, pay for your education, and it'll all work out, and you are feeling the consequences of that, I would also be looking for a way to get out of this, right? I would also be looking for help. And Joe Biden is failing on that front. Not that he shouldn't, but you can see where it becomes.
One underlying theme of all of our conversation tonight has been the fostering of dependency by being godless, materially contingent. And now the reason they're pushing for this, and I think we've got a model over in the UK, is because university attendance in the UK is much higher, because Tony Blair wanted, I believe it was about 50% of all young people in the UK to go to university. Then the Cameron years pushed it up, so they made you stay in higher education until 18 so they could fudge the unemployment numbers, and also because student loans are a lot less and they're taxpayer guaranteed, so they've just jumped them up significantly. I think they've doubled them, but I paid about £9,000 a year plus a maintenance loan that's means adjusted, so I had about £4,000, so I've left with about £40,000 in debt in total. And we pay that back over the course of about 30 years. So we won't pay it back until we're about 50. And what they want to do is get you into the institution which engenders a certain kind of managerial mindset. It's a self-propagating managerial class, like James Burnham would have talked about. And then you're sort of imbibed intersectionality, and you become the perfect kind of compliant corporate drone who says whatever they can to get ahead. And what Biden wants here is to create a dependent class, both They want to vote him in so they can alleviate the debt. And if you have a lot of debt, then of course you want the big government to come and manage the economy to get rid of it. And also self-propagate more people going to university so they're not as scared about racking up all this debt. So then they're more compliant with his edicts in the future. It's a genius self-propagation strategy.
Yeah.
No wonder the Democrats want to push it.
I think it is also interesting, this idea of getting people massively in debt to the point where they don't have the kind of economic leverage that they ordinarily would, without also giving them some kind of property to show for it. I mean, this is absolutely massive. This is one of the reasons I'm somewhat sympathetic to the people who say they want student loans to be forgiven. There's actually a few reasons. Ultimately, I don't agree with it for the reasons I laid out earlier. You make way more money with a degree. People who are making less money shouldn't have to pay your degree off. You still generally end up making way more over the course of your life than the degree ends up costing. But that said, I believe in property ownership. I believe that one of the best economic strategies is to create the conditions for the largest amount of people to have property as is possible, so that everyone has a stake in the system. Everyone does actually have a material stake in the future as well. I think when you're a nation of renters, it becomes a lot more difficult to get people to care about a neighborhood or a region. And this is also part of why it's so insidious that organizations like BlackRock and a lot of these investor buyers have been swooping in and getting all of the real estate in this country and driving prices up for residential owners. And so I'm sympathetic to the argument, even though I don't agree with student loan forgiveness, that we have effectively created a class of people who have the worst of both worlds. They're heavily in debt, so they lack leverage, but they also don't, along with that debt, have the leverage that comes along with property ownership.
It's even worse in the UK. So in 1997, before Tony Blair did education and immigration reforms, house prices were 3 times median income. Now it's 11.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, we only build 200,000 homes a year. We have net intake of 1.1 million immigrants, plus the people they're battery farming in these hotels. Migration Watch UK has estimated that because, and this is the Office for National Statistics that have found that migration is the leading cause of population increase in the UK, because we've got a sub-replacement birth rate, as do most places.
Most Western countries, most developed.
Yeah. And higher education is a cause of that. I spoke to Stephen Shaw, a documentary filmmaker, and he said that this is one of the main reasons why people are delaying having kids, is because they're spending up until their mid-20s, their peak fertility years in universities. But Migration Watch found that by 2046, the rate of population increase that the UK is experiencing will have to have 15 to 18 new cities the size of Birmingham to accommodate that. We can't build it, and the reason they're not building it, and this is the final point, is that 25% of the Conservative Party's donors are property developers. So they have the perverse incentive to both keep prices high enough that they're making a return on investment, but then keep a steady stream of inflated demand, so they keep building these terrible new houses that are unfit for living and are basically just knocked up new builds where the like garden fences are like that. So it's the worst of both worlds in my country.
Yeah, I'd also like to mention one more thing, which is that Biden's student loan repayment changes could cost around $475 billion. We've been talking a lot about the negative economic impact in an abstract, though valid way. However, these are the material figures, $475 billion. That's
the Fed will just print that in an afternoon. It's fine, guys. That'll have no consequences at all.
It never has, right? When has printing way too much money ever gone badly for a country?
Oh yeah.
Goodness. I mean, they just act like money doesn't mean anything. These numbers are ridiculous. And I think that's partially because, in my opinion, the Democratic Party relies on fixing things in the immediate short term to maintain power, and they just kick the problems down the line. In fact, they're more likely to blame someone else, right? Yeah. I think it's a broken system, and I am sad for the people who have to deal with the consequences. But I don't think that student loan debt forgiveness is the answer the way that it's being proposed. And part of that for me is it all goes back to a huge cultural shift. I mean, you might be able to speak to this more than I can, but our education system demands that you make it through 12th grade. And then when you go to 12th grade, you're supposed to leave and go to college. And you're supposed to go for a degree. And increasingly they say, well, if you really want to make more money, you should get a master's degree. So that's an additional 1 to 2 years, right? And well, let's not forget about the medical professions and going to law school. So you're in school forever, creating intense debt and also being reliant on a system. I think that the American education system needs a complete overhaul that encourages independent thought, because it should encourage self-dependence and self-reliance. I think that is ultimately what I don't like, and it's why it's important when you have these conversations about, well, if you don't go to college, what are your options? And in America, we desperately need people to go into the trades, which you can have a successful living without taking on debt, and in some ways have a more free life, right? If you are shackled to student debt, you have to be conscious of that in how you financially plan for your life, even though you have this high paying degree. Whereas if you are able to start making significant amounts of money at a young age, imagine all the things that you could do and the investments you can make and the changes that you could have.
Yeah, if you want to work on if you want to be an electrician, you can also be a YouTuber. You can be an artist and a craftsman now in this world, and you can make a lot of money and you don't need to go to school for it. You can learn the trade online. That's the overhaul I think we need, is people need to take it seriously. The data's there. It is available on the internet. Well, you taught yourself to animate at the age of 12 or something.
Yeah, I started when I was 12.
No, you're like now you're like a quadrillionaire
until YouTube locks you out of your account, of course.
So we should mention that. I did get locked up. So we're still not waiting. There were
for people who don't know
long
what's
story
going
short.
on.
Yeah, so I have a large YouTube channel called Freedom Tunes. We have 877,000 subscribers. I make animated cartoons there. What happened was I have a podcast on Rumble called Shamer. There was another YouTube channel that was pirating all of our content and uploading it without our permission. We've been trying to flag them to get them taken down because we have our own Shamer channel on YouTube that we are posting clips to, and it's been overshadowed in the algorithm by this imposter. And so myself and many people were kind of flagging to try to get it, to bring it to YouTube's attention. Nothing happened. And so I just flagged some of their content, and then YouTube did take some of it down. And because I was able to prove that this is content that was mine originally, that came from my Rumble channel. And then we flagged some more of it. And what happened was, and by we, I mean me, I just sat at my computer and flagged a couple more videos and just showed that they were uploaded without my permission, where they came from originally. They were the exact same videos, exact same titles, exact same lengths, not mirrored or anything like that. And YouTube said that the claims were fraudulent and that it was removing all of the channels associated with the channel that I made the claim from. So I got an email for every YouTube channel that I run from that email address that it had been taken down. And it didn't mention Freedom Tunes, and Freedom Tunes is still up, but all related channels are deleted, and I cannot log into Freedom Tunes. Every single time I try to, there's no interface for me to do anything. It just takes me back to my other Google accounts. So I've reached out to the people at Google to see if we can get this fixed. I've reached out to the people at YouTube. I tweeted about it a little bit earlier today. Let's hope and pray that we're able to get this sorted out.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.